"You can't eat here. This restaurant has standards, and you clearly don't meet them." Those words cut through the elegant dining room of Lumière, one of Manhattan's most exclusive restaurants. The hostess didn't whisper. She didn't soften her tone. She looked directly at the black woman in jeans and a sweater and decided right there in front of the packed Friday night crowd that she didn't belong. Let me take you back to 7:23 p.m. on a cold February evening in Manhattan, where bias meets its match, and where one woman's quiet dignity would reshape an entire industry. Dr. Sofia Martinez had built an empire on the simple belief that everyone deserved to feel welcome. At 45, she was the founder and CEO of Phoenix Restaurant Group, a collection of 47 fine dining establishments spanning from Los Angeles to Miami. Her restaurants had earned 23 Michelin stars collectively and generated $847 million in annual revenue. But none of that mattered as much as the principle that had driven her since childhood. Respect should never be rationed. Born in East LA to parents who cleaned office buildings at night, Sofia had learned early what it felt like to be invisible. She remembered her mother being asked to use the service elevator at hotels they couldn't afford to visit. She remembered her father being told to wait outside restaurants while his employer dined inside. Those memories didn't make her bitter. They made her determined. Tonight's mission was personal. For 6 months, Sofia had been receiving reports about Lumière, the crown jewel of her empire. Anonymous emails to HR, whispered conversations with trusted managers. A pattern of behavior that made Sofia's stomach turn. Guests of color being questioned more extensively, seated in less desirable sections, or simply told the restaurant was fully booked when it clearly wasn't. She'd sent mystery shoppers, all of whom reported positive experiences. But mystery shoppers came during slow periods and often looked like conventional diners. Sofia needed to see the truth for herself. She needed to experience what her guests experienced when they didn't look like what the staff expected. So she'd booked a reservation under Sofia Martinez, requested the 7:30 slot on the busiest night of the week, and dressed like any professional woman grabbing dinner after a long day. Dark jeans from a department store, a cream cashmere sweater, comfortable black boots. Her long black hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail. She carried a small leather purse and her iPhone in a basic black case. To the casual observer, she looked successful but not wealthy, professional but not powerful. It was perfect camouflage. The taxi dropped Sofia off at East 64th Street at exactly 7:23 p.m. The February air was sharp and clean, carrying the scent of snow that hadn't yet fallen. Manhattan's Upper East Side pulsed with its usual Friday night energy. Couples hurrying to dinner reservations, friends meeting for cocktails, the affluent pursuing their weekend pleasures. Lumière occupied the ground floor of a pre-war building with limestone facade and windows that glowed like amber jewels against the darkening sky. Through the windows, Sofia could see the warm interior, exposed brick walls, Edison bulb fixtures, tables dressed in crisp white linens. The space looked exactly as she'd envisioned it when she'd approved the renovation plans 2 years earlier. But it wasn't the decor she was here to evaluate. It was the soul. She walked to the heavy glass door, pulled it open, and stepped inside. The interior of Lumière enveloped Sofia in warmth and sophistication. The lighting was perfect, the acoustics comfortable, despite the restaurant being nearly full. Everything was exactly as she'd planned it. The hostess station stood near the entrance like a beautiful checkpoint. Behind it, Emma Richardson, 34, managed the evening's flow with polished efficiency. She had 18 months of experience at Lumière, hired during Sofia's last major staffing review. Her resume had been impressive: previous experience at Daniel, Le Bernardin, and The Modern. What wasn't on Emma's resume was the subtle way her warmth shifted depending on who was standing in front of her. Sofia watched Emma interact with the couple ahead of her. The man wore jeans and a sport coat. The woman had on leggings and an oversized sweater, almost identical to Sofia's outfit. Emma's greeting was immediate and genuine. "Good evening. Welcome back to Lumière, Mr. and Mrs. Peterson. So wonderful to see you again. We have your usual table ready." When Emma returned, Sofia stepped forward. "Good evening, Sofia Martinez. I have a reservation for Martinez, party of one, at 7:30. Emma's transformation was subtle but unmistakable. Her genuine warmth she'd shown the Petersons dimmed like a light being slowly turned down. Her eyes swept Sofia from head to toe, taking in the jeans, the sweater, the simple ponytail. "I'm sorry, what name was that?" "Martinez, Sofia Martinez, party of one at 7:30. Emma turned to her tablet, fingers moving slowly across the screen. "I'm not seeing anything under that name." Sofia reached into her purse and pulled out her phone, showing the confirmation email. "I have the confirmation right here." Emma glanced at the phone but didn't really look at it. Instead, she stepped slightly to the side, positioning herself between Sofia and the dining room. "Ma'am, even if you had a reservation, we have a very strict dress code here. This is fine dining and we maintain certain standards for our guests' comfort." The words hung in the air like smoke. Sofia felt the familiar tightness in her chest. "I see," Sofia said quietly. "And what exactly about my attire violates your dress code?" Before Sofia could get an answer, another couple approached. The woman wore dark jeans, the same brand Sofia was wearing. The man had on khakis and a casual shirt. Emma's face lit up like a switch had been flipped. "Good evening. Welcome to Lumière. How can I help you tonight?" Sofia watched, fascinated and appalled, as Emma personally escorted the couple to a prime table near the window, recommending wine selections and ensuring they were comfortable. When Emma returned, her expression had hardened. "As I was saying, we simply can't accommodate you tonight." "I'm curious," Sofia said, her voice calm but with an edge. "The couple you just seated, their jeans were more appropriate than mine because—" "You don't understand," she said, her voice rising. "This is a very exclusive restaurant. We cater to a particular clientele, and we have to maintain certain standards." There it was, the word that would echo through the next 8 minutes. Standards. "You're right," Sofia said quietly. "This restaurant does have standards. Standards of service, standards of hospitality, standards of basic human dignity. And right now, you're failing all of them." The entry area had gone noticeably quieter. Conversations dimmed as people sensed conflict brewing. That's when Emma made her fatal mistake. "You can't eat here," she said, her voice loud enough for nearby diners to hear. "This restaurant has standards, and you clearly don't meet them."
The reaction was immediate. Conversations stopped. Silverware paused mid-air. The entire entry area seemed to hold its breath. At table 7, Marcus Chin, a food blogger with 340,000 Instagram followers, looked up from his dinner with shock. His phone was in his hand and recording before he'd consciously decided to film. Near the bar, Jennifer Walsh, a civil rights attorney, set down her martini glass and reached for her phone, composing what would become a viral Twitter thread. Emma seemed to realize her words had carried further than intended, but she didn't apologize. Instead, she doubled down. "I'm going to have to ask you to leave. You're creating a disturbance." Sofia stood perfectly still. "I'm not creating a disturbance. I'm standing here quietly with a confirmed reservation. The disturbance, Emma, is coming from you." Emma's face flushed at hearing her name spoken aloud. "You need to leave." "Actually," Sofia said, reaching for her phone, "I think there's someone you should speak with." Sofia dialed a number she knew by heart. The phone rang twice, then a familiar voice answered. "Phoenix Restaurant Group, this is Michelle Rodriguez." "Michelle, it's Sofia. I need you to initiate Protocol 7 at the Lumière location. Full management review effective immediately." Michelle's voice sharpened with professionalism. She'd worked as Sofia's executive assistant for 7 years and knew Protocol 7 was reserved for serious incidents requiring immediate corporate intervention. "Understood. Do you need legal representation on site?" "Not yet, but have counsel standing by. I also need you to conference in Diana from HR and Robert from legal. I'll have them on the line in 60 seconds. Sofia, are you safe?" "I'm safe, but I'm not okay. And neither is our brand." Sofia hung up and looked at Emma. "That was my assistant. She's connecting me with HR and legal to discuss what's been happening here tonight." Emma's bravado flickered. "Your assistant? What kind of assistant works this late on Friday?" "The kind who works for someone who owns restaurants," Sofia replied. Before Emma could process Sofia's implication, James Sullivan emerged from the back office. At 52, James projected polished authority from decades in high-end hospitality. His silver hair was perfectly groomed, his suit bespoke. "Is there a problem here?" he asked, positioning himself behind Emma. Sofia looked at him calmly. "Your hostess just told me I can't eat here because I don't meet your restaurant's standards." James glanced at Sofia's outfit, making the same calculation Emma had made. "Well, we do maintain certain expectations for our dining room atmosphere. The same expectations that didn't apply to the couple you seated 10 minutes ago, both wearing jeans?" His jaw tightened. "Ma'am, I trust my hostess's judgment about appropriate accommodations, even when that judgment appears to be based on racial profiling." The words hit like a physical force. Several diners gasped. Marcus Chin's phone camera zoomed in on James's face. Jennifer Walsh stopped typing to stare directly at James. James's face flushed. "That's a very serious accusation. We serve all guests equally at Lumière." "Then prove it," Sofia said quietly. "Check your reservation system. Look up Sofia Martinez." James nodded to Emma, who reluctantly turned to her tablet. "I'm still not finding anything," Emma said finally. Sofia held up her phone, showing the confirmation email. "Confirmation number LUM 0211227301. Look it up." James stepped forward and looked at Sofia's phone screen. His expression changed slightly, but he didn't acknowledge what he was seeing. Digital confirmations can be manipulated. We've had issues with fraudulent reservations before. Sofia felt something ice-cold settle in her chest. They weren't just profiling her, they were calling her a criminal. "You're suggesting I forged a reservation confirmation. I'm suggesting we have to be careful about security, and given the disruption you're creating, I'm going to have to ask you to leave." Sofia's phone buzzed. Michelle's name appeared on the screen. "Excuse me, I need to take this call." She answered, and Michelle's voice came through clearly. "Sofia, I have Diana and Robert on conference. We're ready to proceed." Sofia looked around the entry area, taking in the faces of staff and diners, the phones recording every word. Perfect timing, because it's time for everyone here to learn about standards.
Sofia put the phone on speaker, holding it so her voice would carry clearly. "Michelle, I need you to confirm some information for the people gathered here. What is my full name and title?" Michelle's voice rang out with crystal clarity. "Dr. Sofia Martinez, founder and chief executive officer of Phoenix Restaurant Group." The effect was immediate and dramatic. Emma's face went white. James's mouth opened and closed without sound. Around the entry area, guests began murmuring, some pulling out phones to Google Sofia's name. "And Michelle," Sofia continued, What is Phoenix Restaurant Group's relationship to Lumière Restaurant? Phoenix Restaurant Group acquired Lumière in October 2019 for $8.2 million. It's been our flagship New York location for over 2 years. Sofia looked directly at James, then at Emma. Would you like me to continue, or do you understand the situation now? James was sweating, his composed demeanor cracking. Dr. Martinez, I had no idea. Exactly. You had no idea. Because you looked at me and decided I didn't belong here. You didn't check my reservation properly. You didn't ask for identification. Instead, you made assumptions based on my appearance. She turned to Emma. And you told me I don't meet this restaurant's standards? You're right about one thing. There are standards here. Standards of excellence, standards of hospitality, standards of basic human respect. And you violated every single one of them. Sofia's phone was still on speaker, and Michelle's voice cut through the silence. Sofia, HR and legal are standing by for your instructions. Sofia took a breath, looking around the entry area. She saw Marcus Chen still filming. She saw Jennifer Walsh nodding approvingly. Some other diners leaning forward, some looking ashamed, others energized by what they were witnessing. Most importantly, she saw her staff. Some looked shocked, others embarrassed. But in the back, she saw Maria Santos, the sous chef she'd personally hired. Maria was crying but also smiling. And when she caught Sofia's eye, she mouthed a single word. Gracias. Sofia said into the phone, Diana, I need you to initiate immediate termination proceedings for Emma Richardson, hostess, and James Sullivan, general manager at the Lumière location. Grounds, discrimination against a guest, violation of company hospitality policies, and failure to uphold Phoenix Restaurant Group standards. Emma gasped audibly. You can't do this. I can and I am, Sofia replied calmly. Diana, please arrange for security to escort Ms. Richardson and Mr. Sullivan from the premises. They are no longer authorized to represent this company. Understood, Diana's voice came through the speaker. Security will arrive within 10 minutes. James stepped forward desperately. Dr. Martinez, please, this was a misunderstanding. This wasn't a misunderstanding, James. This was a choice. You chose to humiliate a guest rather than serve them. You chose assumptions over professionalism. 20 minutes later, Emma and James had been escorted from the building. Sofia stood in the same spot where Emma had told her she didn't belong, but the atmosphere had completely transformed. Maria Santos approached from the kitchen, still in her chef's coat. Dr. Martinez, I want you to know this has been happening for months. Emma treated a lot of guests differently, especially women of color. I wanted to say something, but I didn't know how. Sofia placed a gentle hand on Maria's shoulder. You're saying something now. That's what matters. Sofia turned to address the remaining staff. I know this has been shocking, but I want you to understand why this happened and why it will continue to happen if we don't address the culture that allowed it. She paused, looking at each face. Lumière isn't just a restaurant. It's a reflection of our values. When we allow bias to influence how we treat guests, we're betraying everything this industry represents. Carmen Rodriguez, a server, raised her hand. Dr. Martinez, what happens now? Sofia smiled. We start by acknowledging this was a problem. We continue by implementing new training programs and new leadership. She turned to Maria. Maria, I'm promoting you to interim general manager effective immediately. You've shown integrity tonight. Maria's eyes filled with tears. I don't know what to say. Say you'll help me rebuild this place into something we can all be proud of. Yes, ma'am, absolutely.
Within an hour, Marcus Chen's Instagram story had been viewed over 50,000 times. Jennifer Walsh's Twitter thread had been retweeted 3,000 times. The story was spreading across social media and into news outlets. But Sofia wasn't thinking about publicity. She was thinking about the elderly black woman at table 14 who had stood and applauded when Emma was escorted out. She was thinking about the young Latina server who had whispered, "Thank you." Her phone buzzed with a text from Michelle. CNN wants a statement. Food and Wine wants an interview. She typed back, "No interviews tonight. Tomorrow we talk about change, not revenge." At table 7, Marcus Chen was typing a new post. "Witnessed something extraordinary tonight at Lumière NY. When discrimination meets accountability, justice looks quiet but powerful." But it was table 14 that mattered most. The elderly black woman approached as Sofia was preparing to leave. "Excuse me, dear," she said softly. "I wanted to thank you." "There's no need to thank me. I was just doing what should have been done." She smiled. "I'm 83 years old. I've been refused service, treated poorly more times than I can count. But tonight, for the first time, I saw someone with power use it to protect dignity." She paused, eyes bright with tears. "My granddaughter is 25. She's a doctor like you. Now when she tells me about how people treat her, I can tell her about tonight. I can tell her that change is possible." Sofia felt her own eyes fill with tears. "What's your granddaughter's name?" "Carmen, Dr. Carmen Washington. She's a pediatric surgeon at Mount Sinai." Sofia pulled out her phone and typed a note. "Carmen Washington is welcome at any Phoenix Restaurant Group location, anytime, as my personal guest, and so are you."
6 months later, Sofia returned to Lumière for a special dinner with her parents, who had flown in from Los Angeles to see what their daughter had built. Her father looked around the dining room with wonder. "When your mother and I cleaned offices at night, we used to walk past restaurants like this and wonder what it would be like to eat inside." Her mother smiled as Maria Santos personally served their table. "We always knew you'd do something important." As they shared dessert, Sofia reflected on the journey. The discrimination she'd faced as a child had taught her empathy. The challenges of building a business had taught her resilience, but that night with Emma and James had taught her something else, that with power came the responsibility to use it for more than personal gain. "What are you thinking about, Mija?" her mother asked. "I'm thinking about standards, real ones." Her father laughed. "Your standards were always too high. Even as a little girl, you wanted everything to be fair." "Maybe that's not too high. Maybe that's just right." As they prepared to leave, Carmen Rodriguez approached their table. In the 6 months since Sofia had promoted her to head hostess, Carmen had become one of the restaurant's most valued employees. "Dr. Martinez, thank you for dining with us tonight. I hope everything met your expectations." Sofia smiled. It exceeded them, but then again, it always does now. As they walked to the door, Sofia paused at the hostess station where it all began. The nameplate that once read Emma Richardson now read Carmen Rodriguez, Guest Experience Manager. "You know what I'm proudest of?" Sofia said to her parents. "What's that?" her father asked. Sofia looked back at the restaurant's glowing windows, where diners of every background sat together, laughing and enjoying their evenings. "That grandmother and granddaughter who come here every month, Dorothy and Carmen Washington, they never have to wonder if they're welcome. They just know they are." Her mother squeezed her arm.
That's a good standard to meet." "No," Sofia said, thinking about all the restaurants in her group, all the changes that had rippled through the industry, all the guests who now felt valued in places that had once made them feel invisible. That's the only standard worth having. 2 years later, the Phoenix Restaurant Group had grown to 73 locations. But Sofia's proudest achievement wasn't the expansion, it was the culture. Every Phoenix restaurant displayed a small plaque near the entrance. Every guest deserves dignity, every moment, every meal, every time. The Lumière incident had become a case study taught in business schools and hospitality programs. But for Sofia, the real measure of success was simpler. No guest should ever have to wonder if they belonged. Dorothy Washington, now 85, still came to Lumière every month with Carmen. They always sat at table 14, and they always left knowing they were valued, not as exceptions, but as the rule. The night that began with "You can't eat here" had become the foundation for a new understanding of what hospitality could be. Not just service, but justice. Not just accommodation, but affirmation. Not just standards, but the right standards. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Drop a comment about a time you stood up for what was right. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories that matter. Because sometimes the most powerful statement you can make is simply refusing to leave.